So yesterday I was feeling particularly rough, and just feeling very emotional. And it's sort of the state that I get, where you just feel really emotional and you're like sad, all of that kind of stuff. I'm sure everybody knows exactly what that feeling is. Well, I kind of figured out why I was feeling like that later on is that it's almost always my state of exhaustion after the next day of teaching. And I know that seems kind of bizarre to talk about that, but um, teaching, so the way that the academic career works is you're alone all the time, and then there is one day or maybe it's 2 days or something like one particular day where you are exposed to a great deal of teaching, right? And the great deal of teaching, everybody in the outside world thinks you don't really do anything, but you might teach for an entire afternoon. Um, and for me, when I first started teaching, it was always exciting, right? Like speaking in front of people, it's a high stress environment. It is very, for me, I'm a naturally an introvert, which I would say like most people are that way. If you ask them to do public speaking and to do something like this, it would be stressed. It would feel like a stressed environment. And so what ends up almost inevitably happening, this is the pattern that goes through is, um, I used to get very nervous before doing it. Now I don't really get that nervous, not so much anymore. And then the evening or during it, I get this sort of rush of adrenaline, and I feel like, like you feel like you're high, basically. And then at the end of it, I almost inevitably will get a headache or a migraine, and I won't be able to sleep the night of. I'll be kind of jittery um, throughout the night, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and then the next day I will be completely exhausted, absolutely, completely exhausted. Where I just need a day of recuperating, and I'll feel very sad. Um, go through all of those very negative emotions. And last night I just needed to go to bed early. Um, so when you go through all of this, though, is I want to point out that the whole pattern is, I think, pretty predictable. It's pretty normal to go through those kind of things, and maybe as I get older, I'll get better at it, in terms of managing it. So it used to be more stressful for me, to go through this. It was really a lot more stressful to interact, in a public way, and is getting better, is getting easier, but it still doesn't mean I don't go through this sort of process. And so today I feel somewhat more normal. But a lot of the things I was talking about yesterday is still very true. You're very isolated. I think it's an industrial hazard of the profession. I think that's the major reason why people actually don't do it, once they actually go through and try for a while. It's the social isolation. Um, so, all of these kind of things, these are the real emotions of what you're going to experience if you're to go and become an academic, or, go do research. And I think it's just, this is important to document, for the outside world so they can see or hear what it's actually like. Like if you're choosing to do this, you understand the experiences that you're going to go through. Your experiences might be different than mine, but for the most part, I'm pretty sure they're pretty similar. Um, but this is the things that you're going to go through, and it's also really important for the outside world to sort of see, hey, this is not, the critique. We get so many critiques that are just ridiculous, that are just people absolutely clueless. Um, in terms of understanding the world. I was just listening to this podcast about the trucking industry, and I just felt like it was so similar compared to what we were actually doing, and the sort of stages that you go through, and the sort of isolation that you feel, the the being away from people, all of those kind of things. I was like, this is so similar to the trucking industry, and then often particularly when you start out, not later on, but when you start out, the ridiculously low wages that you make, for doing a whole bunch of work. Um, it's just really interesting to go and listen to this. And I would say that the career is more similar to trucking than people actually realize, uh, because of these sort of emotions and things that you go through and the sort of challenges that you actually face. Um, and, you know, I just want to point out that, and oh, and that was the other thing I was going to, is that the outside world has kind of all of these myths, in terms of what they believe the trucking industry is actually like, but it is far different than that, right? They sort of have this romanticized view of you're driving across the country and seeing the country and all these kind of things. You realize is actually pretty stressful. And it's the same sort of thing with the academic research career, is that, you have all of these pressures that are put on you to be more alone. And so this is the rub, right? Like, you have all of these external pressures on you, and that forces you to be more alone, which forces you to feel worse, and then forces you to feel those outside pressures even more. And this is kind of a pattern that you go through, that you'll experience. And so, um, the only time that you feel very positive emotions is generally at that one moment of discovery, but it's very, very fleeting. And it's usually when you're just doing data collection and you're just running the analysis for the first time, or developing some code for the first time, which doesn't happen as much for me. I've learned that I just got to focus on the writing, and that's it. That's the key thing. And writing is grueling for me, and I think it's grueling for most people. So I'm actually extremely happy with some of the changes that have been occurring with AI, uh, and maybe perhaps we can, move some of that or remove some of those components. But, um, anyways, uh, it's just interesting. And I think the outside world, should know the experiences that we go through. All right, take care, and have a wonderful day. Bye.